Hello my beautiful gamers, it is I, Rtyuiope from Rtyuiope's Gameroom, here with a very special guest.
What's up everybody, I'm Kami, and I don't really do much, but I guess I play games and make videos sometimes.
Today, we're going to be talking about the amazing and adrenaline-pumping experience that is Yakuza 0 for PS4. Yakuza is a series that I have an interesting history with. See, my first entry into the series was with the game Yakuza Dead Souls, and of course if you know anything about Yakuza, it's that it's not exactly the best entry spot for anyone. But about a year after dropping the game, I see my friend Kami here shilling the newly released Yakuza 0 on Twitter, so I say, well shit, might as well give it a shot, eh? Seeing that it was the prequel to all the Yakuza games, I thought that was a perfect entry point. So now that I have purchased the game and beaten it, what are my opinions on it, and by extensions, what are Kami's opinions on it?
And me being someone else that started the series with Zero, who's now finished every game in it, including spin-offs, excluding one of them, I guess I have a few things to say about Yakuza 0.
So, without further ado, let us take a look at Yakuza 0 for PlayStation 4. The Yakuza series, or as it is known in Japan, Ryuga Gotoku, which means like a dragon, is an open-world action-adventure beat-em-up style video game created by Sega. The series originated from the always interesting monkey ball-loving guy, Toshihiro Noguchi, who desired to create a video game world that would tell the story of a Yakuza member. As many know, the series is predominantly focused on Kazuma Kiryu of the Tojo clan. Kazuma Kiryu seems to be working for the Tojo clan most of the time, but in every game it feels like every problem is sprouted from the Tojo clan and he always has to pick up their mess. It's a really weird dynamic. The Yakuza series had its very first release in Japan on December 8th, 2005 for the first game on PS2, and was released later in America for September 5th, 2006. Yakuza 0 was developed as a prequel to this series. It was released in Japan all the way back in March 12, 2015, but was not released in America until January 24, 2017. The reason for that is because the Yakuza series wasn't doing too well in America, and Sega had little faith in the property, but they decided to give it one more shot with Yakuza 0, and to their surprise, Yakuza 0 was met with fanfare and acclaim. The game was announced during a Yakuza event on August 24, 2014 with a trailer. At the same time, a Chinese localization was announced as well, but no word of an American release at that time. It was also confirmed at the time that Shonen no Kaze would perform the game's main theme song, Bubble. But of course that song was not licensed for the American release, so instead we got an instrumental track for the opening. But only a year later, on December 5th, 2015 at a PlayStation Experience in San Francisco, Yakuza 0 was announced to come to the Americas for PS4. But there wasn't an official confirmation for the European release until July 2016. The game was also marketed as a 10th anniversary project for this series along with Yakuza Kiwami, which is a remake of the first Yakuza game. There are some subtle differences between the Chinese release, the Japanese release, and the English release. As previously stated, the English release did not receive the song Bubble, and instead got an instrumental track for its opening. Japan stayed as its original unintact form, and the Chinese release saw the replacement of a character with a Chinese actor as a fill-in. There's not much to say about the art style in this game considering it bases itself more off of reality than artistic interpretation. And that's 100% okay since it works in this game. And the animations, for the most part, look pretty decent. Oh yes, the music in this game is extremely spectacular, having a wide array of different genres on display here. Thanks to all these varying genres, it really makes this world feel real and alive. With metal songs such as Judgment, or epic battle themes like Make You Free. Maybe something a little more slow and down to earth like Baka Mitai. Or something so poppy and catchy like 24-Hour Cinderella.
So the Yakuza games fit into the action category in terms of gameplay, with brief RPG elements including different gear that affect your stats, unlocking new abilities, special attacks, and passive upgrades through your skill tree, and getting experience from side quests as well as main quests to use on said upgrades. Though since Yakuza 0 is set in the 80s and money's a big topic, you use money to purchase your upgrades from your skill trees in this game. Most of the time you'll be punching guys in the face, but there's tons of different ways to play each of these games and a huge variety of heat moves, the game's special attacks that can be used when your heat meter reaches certain levels. A lot of these are context sensitive and involve whatever's surrounding you. Fighting some group of thugs in the street, just pick up a bike, hit triangle to activate your heat move, and boom, you just slam that bike on someone. There's literally so many of these throughout all the different games that I'm 100% sure I haven't seen them all yet. There's probably tons of them that I'm unaware, since some fit very specific criteria like fighting while drunk, which is something I didn't do much of in any Yakuza game up until my recent replay of Yakuza 0. Now that all that information is out of the way, let's actually go over our two playable characters and their interesting movesets. Keep in mind that both of our playable characters, Kiryu and Majima, have three fighting styles. First, let's start off with our main series protagonist, Kiryu. Kiryu's brawler moveset consists of a more balanced fighting style that's very similar to his traditional moveset in all the other games. You've got great ways of dealing damage to single targets as well as other great options for hitting several opponents at once. This style also has an extremely powerful parry attack meant to resemble the Komaki Tiger Drop, a powerful parry attack that Kiryu can use throughout the Yakuza series. And trust me, that thing is extremely broken and does a ton of damage. Also, like I mentioned earlier, this fighting style has some abilities exclusive to when you're in the drunk state. There's also added kick combos and tons of extensions to your normal combos that also include grabs into the mix, making Brawler an even stronger playstyle. Next, we move on to the Rush style, which is pretty much an extremely quick boxing stance. Rush is very good for getting tons of quick hits in against single opponents, as your continuous punches can stun enemies and bosses. Rush style also has the best evasive and defensive capabilities, as you can unlock improved quick steps that are extremely fast and efficient, and you can get upgrades that extend the distance of your quick steps, allowing you to dodge powerful attacks from bosses with more ease. On top of all this, the most interesting thing about the Rush style is that instead of having a block, you have evasive weaving. When you press L1, which is normally your block button, Kiryu will instead weave out of the way, similar to how a boxer would inside the ring. And sure enough, you can get tons of upgrades for the weaving that allow you to weave after taking a hit, weaving out of a rush combo, and weaving out of a quick step. There's also a counter quick step, which serves as a parry that when timed right will move you behind the opponent. You also have charged attacks, an attack to use while rising from the ground after being knocked down, and the ability to resume your defensive weave after the enemy breaks your guard. And finally, the Rush style gives you access to cool heat moves to deal with armed enemies through the use of having brass knuckles equipped, which is pretty damn cool if you ask me. And I know that I've been dropping tons of information over your heads, but just bear with me. Also, that was an extremely well thought out pun on the fact that we'll be discussing the B style, which has tons of strong grabs that involve slamming things over people's heads, and the bear pun with the style being beast mode. I like to think I'm smart sometimes. And I'll say this right now, beast mode is ridiculously overpowered in Yakuza 0. Beast mode allows you to pretty much grab anything and everything in the entire game, and you can grab directly out of evades, which is very useful for many situations, as B style is the slowest of the three fighting styles for Kiryu. Similar to the Rush style, your normal blocking that's used in Brawler style is now replaced with a resisted guard stance, where the more heat you have, the longer Kiryu can just stand there and tank hits. Add in the fact that you can use this guard stance as a parry to avoid taking damage completely from enemy attacks if timed right, and all the added heat moves and options you gain from this. As long as you maintain a high heat gauge, enemies can't stagger you or knock you down, and Beast Mode has the best crowd control with its wide and powerful attacks consisting of clotheslines, sweeps, and tackles, allowing you to demolish any obstacles that appear in front of you. And probably the coolest gimmick of Beast Style is that while you are near anything that is outside or wherever it is you're fighting that can be picked up and used to attack, as long as you press square next to it, Kiryu will automatically pick it up. So if you're fighting somebody in the street and there's a bike next to you, switch over to the Beast style, hit square, and he'll immediately pick up the bike and attack with the bike. This becomes very useful when you're trying to clear waves of enemies. And now we move on to our next playable character, Majima. Similar to Kiryu's Brawler style, Majima has a Thug style that consists of attacks that exploit enemy weaknesses in any situation. Thug style has a throw escape, improved quick stepping, counter attacks that are useful when you have level 3 heat, a move where Majima literally pokes the opponent's eyes, leaving them stunned and unable to track where you are for a short amount of time, and lots of heat moves to use against armed enemies. You also have the ability to attack out of a quick step just like Kiryu's Rush style. Next we have the Breaker style for Majima, which is literally breakdancing but is probably one of the most useful fighting styles once mastered. Breaker is fast, and like Kiryu's brawler style, has a parry attack that does more damage the less amount of heat gauge you have. Once unlocked, this thing is extremely powerful against boss fights while playing as Majima. You also have more evasive attacks that are good for dodging and quickly poking the enemy, as well as a few juggles and a heat move where you literally bite a fucking sword then attack the opponent. That right there has got to be at least plus 50 style points for my boy Majima. I mean, seriously, biting a sword and then attacking somebody with it, that's pretty damn baller. And Breaker style is Majima's best form of crowd control, as you've got tons of large sweeps and windmill kicks that are very effective for fighting crowds of enemies, and surprisingly very strong against bosses, as you can knock them down fairly easily with your sweeps. Finally, we have the Slugger style, which allows you to use a bat at all times, giving you a very effective way of outranging opponents in a game where most of the combat is always face to face. It's a nice change of pace for the gameplay and gives Majima tons of enhancements to other weapons he may use, such as nunchucks, poles, Kali sticks, katanas, and Majima's trademark weapon, a dagger. It's pretty cool to see what kinds of things you can pull off with Slugger style, like deflecting bullets with your bat if you perfectly time your hit. Also, both characters have a secret fourth fighting style which you unlock after completing both of their businesses. And these fourth secret fighting styles are essentially their trademark fighting styles in other games, which gives Kiryu the Dragon of Dojima and gives Majima the Mad Dog of Shimano fighting style. And honestly, the cabaret is probably one of the easier things to do in the game when it comes to side quests, as it's not really a hard minigame. Once you figure out all the hand signals and memorize them, it becomes essentially extremely easy. My recommendations would be, though, to make sure you do all of the training with your platinum hostesses so that you'll get the most out of everything. And as for Kiryu's business, honestly, just get the CP upgrades at Babu Tsunomiya or at the shrine, wherever it is, I forget at the moment. But get the upgrades over there that will make your business collection go faster as you're waiting for money, and probably, I'd say, go and do other side quests as you can gain other people to join for your real estate business through this, and it'll also make the time go by faster. And considering you'll be doing Kiryu's real estate business longer than you'll be doing the Cabaret Club with Majima, since it just takes a bit longer, I honestly just recommend going out and doing stuff and maybe do a little bit of karaoke. Karaoke will actually speed up the amount of time you have to wait, and if you have the max CP upgrade at the shrine so that your collection time is at its minimal, then doing about 2 karaoke songs back to back should be more than enough time to go back to the real estate agency and check and get all your revenue back up and continue investing.
Wow, man, that's some pretty in-depth analysis on that gameplay. You knocked it out of the ballpark there. The sub-stories are part of what makes Yakuza, Yakuza. The series is renowned for its interesting and deep engaging storylines about crime, family, and drama, but there's always room for a little bit of comedy here and there. If you barely know anything about Yakuza, you at least know that the sub-stories are goofy and wacky as hell. There's some that are just so out there and bizarre that I can't even fully explain. You'd have to actually play them to see what I'm talking about. Along with a ton of side quests, this game also has a ton of mini-games, such as a disco, pocket racing, karaoke, phone club, cat fights, bowling, baseball, anything really. It's ridiculous. It's a melting pot of different things. As Donkey once put it, it's basically Distraction, the video game, and there's nothing wrong with that. It is an absolute blast from start to finish. But there are also some sub-stories that I don't find that interesting. Some that can kind of just drag on and aren't that fun and engaging, and there's not really any benefit for doing them per se. Sometimes you get money, sometimes you get something you can trade in to the pawn shop, but at the end of the day, most sub-quests are just for completion, the trophy, or just for the heck of it. They're not really at all required. Oh, and don't get me started on pocket racing. Oh. But not all the mini-games are that fun. Sometimes you can just play it once and get all that you're gonna get out of it. Such as the phone club and the cat fights. The cat fights feel very unbalanced, like there's not really any way to win it besides luck, which isn't very fun. There's also, of course, the phone club, which has a ton of side quests in it, so you're forced to do it to get those side quests if you want to get that side quest trophy, and it's just really drawn out and annoying. Sure, the first 1 or 2 phone club segments are actually kind of fun and interesting, but after that it's just the same thing over and over again, and I could have easily done without it. Hello and welcome welcome to another physical editions here on Rtyuiope's Gameroom. Today will be another shorter episode since we're looking at a physical edition that is just a standard edition with no real added goodies to it, unfortunately, but nonetheless, I decided to share it with some of you today. So today we are going to be looking at Yakuza 0 for PS4. Here on the front you can see the logo Yakuza 0, and the two main protagonists, Goro Majima and Kazuma Kiryu. And in the background behind them is a few of the bosses and main characters that play an integral part of the story within the game. So, let's take a look inside, shall we? Inside you got just your boring mumbo-jumbo legal business. And on the right you have the disc, which features the same art that's on the front cover for Kiryu and Majima. Nothing too crazy, nothing too cool. I like the disc art, although it is nothing really amazing or out there, per se. On the back, it's got several shots of all the characters throughout the game, including Kiryu and Goro Majima, and it tells you some of the things you can do within the game. It's pretty basic for a standard edition, as expected with most PS4 games, and there's not much to talk about here, but it's still an interesting thing to collect and put on your shelf if you are planning to get all of the Yakuza games. I wish it did come in a steelbook here and overseas in America, which I don't think it did, because if it did, I would have totally gotten it to go with my Yakuza Kiwami steelbook, but unfortunately it does not. So, today that is all we're going to be looking at for physical editions. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope to see you next time. The game takes place in December 1988, following Kazuma Kiryu and, of course, Goro Majima. In the fictional subsidiary of Tokyo, Kamurocho, Kiryu is suspected for the murder of a man that he was trying to get money back for a loan shark. Kiryu, of course, didn't kill the man, but that doesn't stop the Tojo clan and the police being hot on his tail for the crime. But quickly, Kiryu learns that this is all just an elaborate setup so that his adoptive father figure, I guess, is to blame for Kiryu committing the supposed murder and dethroning him from power, so that others can rise up in power in his place, over this mysterious empty lot.
Now, I won't go into too much detail for the story since I personally think that you guys should experience this kind of stuff for yourself, but let me elaborate on what makes Majima being playable so damn cool. Up to this point, Majima was already a pretty popular character, but his popularity spiked up now that we got more information on his backstory. Because before Zero, Majima seemed to just be this kind of crazy guy that was always showing up at random places and doing a bunch of stuff, but Yakuza 0 shows us Majima before that. So I'm sure a lot of longtime fans always wondered why Majima did all the crazy shit that he did and why he was the way that he is. And you know, what else is his real relation to Kiryu? How did they meet? These are questions that people had, which Yakuza 0 finally answered for us. And as someone who got into Yakuza from playing Zero, it was definitely very interesting to see how his character has developed all the way up to the most recent installment, Yakuza 6. The best way I could describe the Yakuza franchise is a movie series with tons of intense drama, tension, interesting characters, smaller plot points that tie into one large grand scheme that wraps up nicely, all with a soundtrack that complements everything. There's never a moment where the soundtrack feels distant, and it's always something that stands out and makes a lot of moments for characters and bosses memorable. Likewise, I also think Zero should be your starting point for the series. Since it serves as a starting point canonically in the timeline anyways, that alone should be enough for you to start, as all these game stories follow back to back in chronological order, going from 0 through 6. And it's an amazing game that just pulls you in so quickly. Seriously, the first hour of Yakuza 0 is probably one of the best first hours in a game I've ever experienced. Talk about a first impression. So if you like action games or crime dramas, then you should definitely give the Yakuza series a try.
So, what are my final thoughts on Yakuza 0? Well, Yakuza 0 I feel is one of the most interesting and important games on the PS4 today. It revitalized interest in a dying property and really reintroduced us all into that Yakuza world. The gameplay is in-depth and fun, although it can be cheesable at times. So all in all, I think Yakuza 0 is a perfect game to add to your collection. There's just about something here for everyone, and that's no understatement. The music is jamming, The world feels alive, the side quests are hilarious, the gameplay is exceptional, and the story is deeply engaging. What more could you want from a video game? Yakuza 0 at the end of the day was a massively fun romp and a great entry through the series. There are some naysayers out there who will say you have to play the games in release order, and while that might be how some people have to play the games if you're one of those people who can't stand going back and forth between different levels of polish for gameplay, but if you can overlook that kind of thing, then I highly recommend Yakuza 0 as the perfect start into the series. Yakuza 0 is definitely deserving of all the praise it gets, and it serves as a new era for the Yakuza franchise. And that is exactly why next month I'm going to be talking about the remake of Yakuza 1, Yakuza Kiwami. Anyway, this has been Rtyuiope from Rtyuiope's Game Room,
with Kami,
signing out. Hey, I just wanted to let you guys know that I now have a Patreon. If you could throw a few dollars my way, that would be greatly appreciated. Some of the perks include recommending a game for me to review and joining the private Patreon Discord server. So, if you have the few extra dollars, I'd greatly appreciate it. Here's a shout out to some of my fantastic donors.